this list, in our number 10 spot, we have Elvis Presley. There have been rumors and conspiracy theories surrounding Elvis Presley's success and his alleged deal with the devil to achieve fame and fortune. Some fans and theorists believe that Presley's success was not solely due to his musical talent, but rather his involvement in the occult and the supernatural. One of the most prevalent rumors surrounding Presley's alleged deal with the devil is the fact that he was born a twin, but his brother Jesse Garon was stillborn. According to the rumor, Presley made a pact with the devil to trade his twin brother's life for his own success. I personally think that that is a particularly cruel rumor and conspiracy, and am much more on the side of those who believe that Presley's interest in mysticism and the occult was evidence of his involvement in dark practices. Some point to his love for black magic and spiritualism as proof that he made a deal with the devil. Despite the persistent rumors, there is no concrete evidence that Elvis Presley ever sold his soul or made a deal with the devil. These rumors are likely just a product of his enduring fame and the allure of the supernatural. In our number 9 spot today, we have Justin Bieber. I'll be honest, I am a believer, so it was news to me when I found out that some people think he too has sold his soul. Some have pointed to his music videos and lyrics, as well as his public behavior and controversial actions, as evidence of his supposed pact with the devil. People believe that Bieber's meteoric rise to fame and success at a young age was too sudden to be natural, and that he must have made a deal with the devil to achieve it, while others point to his lyrics, music videos, and imagery, which they believe contain hidden symbols and messages associated with the occult. Many of these claims are most likely the result of speculation, rumors, and conspiracy theories fueled by Bieber's controversial personal life and the internet's tendency to spread sensationalized stories, but hey, who am I to say for sure? In our number 8 spot today, we have Elizabeth Bathory. Elizabeth was a Hungarian noblewoman who lived from August of 1560 to August of 1614. She was born into one of the oldest and most powerful families in Transylvania, and she was well educated and ran various estates and bore many children. Oh, and this is all happening while she was also killing young women and bathing in their blood. Yeah, weird and gross, and also terrible. Elizabeth is known for killing her servants and bathing in their blood, as she believed it would keep her young. Not only this, but she is also said to have made a deal with the devil in order to gain this sort of power. All accounts of Elizabeth remember her as a terrible, evil person. It is said that her number of victims most likely ranges somewhere from 175 to 200, but some people claim that it might be as many as 600. It is no wonder she is referred to as Countess Dracula. In our number 7 spot today, we have Madonna. Madonna has been accused of making a deal with the devil for her success and longevity in the music industry. The rumors have persisted over the years due to her use of provocative and controversial imagery in her performances, as well as her supposed connections to secret societies and the occult. Some people believe that her massive success in the music industry and her often controversial behavior are all signs that she made a deal with the devil. Others point to her use of religious imagery in her music and performances, which they believe is a deliberate attempt to subvert traditional religious values. Some people just can't get over that the girl wants to have fun, and she's been having fun in the public eye for decades now. I get it, Madonna gets a little carried away from time to time, but that doesn't mean the woman sold her soul. Or does it? In our number 6 spot today, we have Johann Faust. According to the stories passed down about this man, it is said that he was an alchemist and astrologer who lived in Germany during the early 1500s. It is said that in his plight to become the smartest man in the world, while also enjoying as many earthly pleasures as possible, he summoned the help of a demon named Mephistopheles. There are terrible stories about how cruel and truly evil this man was, and as a professor, it is said that he looked down on everyone else. Local priests apparently believed that he had actually made a deal with the devil in which he sold his soul to him, and there are also stories that say his pet dog was actually a demon who was able to shapeshift. During his life, he did publish several grimoires, and in 1540, while conducting some sort of alchemic experiment, his laboratory exploded. Just thought that was a fun little anecdote to share with you guys. In our number 5 spot today, we have Michael Jackson. Definitely one of the celebrities who has had the most connections to the occult. Some fans and theorists believe that Jackson's success, talent, and enduring popularity could not be attributed solely to his hard work and dedication, but rather to a supernatural pact that he had made. One of the most persistent rumors surrounding Jackson's supposed deal with the devil was that he made the pact at the age of 12. According to this rumor, Jackson traded his soul to achieve success in the music industry. Others have pointed to Jackson's fascination with the occult and his interest in spiritual practices as evidence of his involvement in the dark arts. Some also cite his dramatic physical transformations as proof of his alleged deal with the devil. At the end of the day, did Michael Jackson have a deal with the devil? Well, I guess I'll just let you decide for yourself. It's my way of saying no, none of these people did, because the devil doesn't exist. In our number 4 spot today, we have Aleister Crowley. This man is quite well known for being the leader of an occult group, and this really does stem back even into his childhood. It is said that quite early on, Aleister started calling himself the Beast and the Antichrist, and he is even quoted as saying that God and Satan fought over his soul. In one of his books, he wrote, quote, "I was in the death struggle with self. God and Satan fought for my soul those 3 long hours. God conquered. Now, I have only one doubt left. Which of the twain was God?" Many people believe that perhaps he made a deal with Satan, but it is possible that these are just rumblings based on Aleister's teachings and beliefs. In our number 3 spot today, we have Beyonce. Queen Bee, an absolute living legend. Like her husband though, who we spoke about on part 1, Beyonce has also been accused of being a member of the Illuminati and selling her soul for fame and fortune. The claim that Beyonce sold her soul is a conspiracy theory that has been circulating online for several years. However, there is no evidence to support this claim. Just don't want the bee people to come for me. The belief that Beyonce sold her soul likely stems from her success, which some people may find hard to believe without a supernatural explanation. I do understand that one. I mean, did you see Homecoming? Additionally, her music and performances often incorporate religious and spiritual imagery, which may further fuel the rumors. Also forgot to include that people think she's a part of the Illuminati. Okay, that's important. People think that she is directly related to a satanic organization. The success of talented and hardworking individuals like Beyonce is typically the result of dedication, perseverance, and talent, but some people just swear it's soul selling. In our number 2 spot today, we have Theophilus of Adna. For this one, we are taking it back a little bit, all the way to 538 AD. Theophilus of Adna was a cleric in the Roman Catholic Church. So basically, one day he was elected to become the new bishop, but he ended up denying the offer, as it is said that he wanted a more priestly sort of position instead of one with all of that power and responsibility. It is said that he wanted the position of archdeacon, which would have seen him controlling where the donation money went. So apparently, in passing on this bishop position, he thought that if he gave this bishop position to his rival, then his rival should at least be grateful enough to give him the position he wanted. But of course, this did not happen. The new bishop gave away the seat that Theophilus wanted and instead gave him the position of being a humble cleric. This made Theo super angry, and this is when he thought that maybe the church isn't as holy as he once thought they were. This is when he decided to summon the help of Satan. He ended up signing a contract with Satan in his own blood. He denounced Jesus and the Virgin Mary, and it is said that with the help of Satan, he was once again voted into the bishop position, and this time he accepted. At this point in time, it is said that he felt so guilty he confessed to this deal with the devil, and the priest who he confessed to decided that they should burn the blood-signed contract. For a second, Theo looked up, but then suddenly he collapsed and died. Many people believe that it was because he had broken his contract. And finally, in our number 1 spot today, we have Jonathan Moulton. Jonathan is a man who was born in 1726, and he was known for his military career. He served in King George's War as well as in the French and Indian Wars, but after his service is where the story really starts. Basically, after his time fighting was over, he went on to become one of New England's wealthiest men. This caused heads to swivel and rumors to swirl because this wasn't something that was normally seen. This all gave way for the rumor that Jonathan had struck his luck of fortune because he was actually working with the devil. People began to say that for financial gain, he in turn gave his eternal devotion and even his soul over to the devil. The devil would visit him every month in order to fill up his boot with gold. You know what happens with things like this though, people get greedy. It is said that despite this lavish lifestyle he was already living, he wanted more, and this led to him making the mistake of trying to trick the devil. He cut a hole in the floor above his basement and placed a boot over it, which also had a hole in the heel. Of course he did this so that when the devil came with the gold, he'd get a whole basement full rather than just a boot. But the devil certainly caught on. From there, it is said that he burned down Jonathan's house along with all of the gold that lay inside. Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have Led Zeppelin. Rock and roll and Satanism have long been connected in some people's eyes, so it's no wonder that legendary band Led Zeppelin has experienced some of these dark connections. Back in January of 1982, evangelical broadcaster Paul Crouch began accusing different rock artists of hiding messages in their songs through backmasking, and one example that he pointed out was the classic Zeppelin tune Stairway to Heaven. He directly pointed to a segment of the song where he claimed that when played in reverse, he was hearing the words, "Oh, here's to my sweet Satan, the one whose little path would make me sad, whose power is Satan. He will give those with him 666. There was a little tool shed where he made us suffer, sad Satan." Since this accusation of satanic messages, this has definitely become one of the most famous instances of alleged backmasking, which has only added to the legacy of Zeppelin. In our number 9 spot today, we have Bob Dylan. Not necessarily who I expected to put on this list, but there was an interesting interview back in 2004 that made many people speculate that the musician might have sold his soul. In the interview, he was explaining that he owes his years of fame and success to a deal he made. The interviewer asked, "Why are you still out here?" To which Dylan replied, "It goes back to that destiny thing. I made a bargain with it, you know, long time ago, and I'm holding up my end." The interviewer, of course, had to follow up on what that cryptic message was, so he asked, "What was your bargain?" Dylan replied, "To get where I am now." The interviewer asked, "Should I ask who you made the bargain with?" He replied, "With the chief commander." The interviewer clarified, "On this earth?" To which he answered, "In this earth and in a world we can't see." I can totally see why some people decided to draw their own conclusions from this. I mean, it sounds like he is basically speaking in riddles. While he doesn't outright say that he sold his soul, some believe that this is what he was trying to say in that interview. In our number 8 spot today, we have Ozzy Osbourne. One of the most famous rock stars ever, Ozzy has long been connected to the occult. I mean, Ozzy, Prince of Darkness, didn't just come from nowhere. Aside from the rumors, however, Ozzy has been fairly open about his personal connection to the devil. In a 1984 issue of Hit Parader, Ozzy said, quote, "I really wish I knew why I've done some of the things I've done over the years. Sometimes I think that I'm possessed by some outside spirit. A few years ago, I was convinced of that. I thought I truly was possessed by the devil. I remember sitting through The Exorcist a dozen times saying to myself, yeah, I can relate to that." He even has expressed confusion over whether or not he's a medium for some kind of outside source, or if something much more sinister is at play. When speaking of actually selling his soul, well, Ozzy had some less than comforting things to say. He said, quote, "I already have. Well, you sell your soul to the devil when you do something yourself that you shouldn't, and I already have. I've lived my life to the fullest. If there's an afterlife, I've got a good spot in the furnace, you know?" I'll see you there, Ozzy. In our number 7 spot today, we have Jay-Z. Rapper Jay-Z has long had some interesting stories and conspiracies surrounding him, including his alleged connection to the Illuminati. You know, this secret society that conspiracy theorist claims possesses this crazy, unknowable power. People often make this connection with a lot of people in the rap and hip-hop industry, but it happens to Jay-Z often due to him referencing the devil multiple times in his music videos. I mean, especially in the song Lucifer. People also make connections to certain imagery shown in his music videos and even in his merch or the things he wears himself as well, to things like the occult and Satan himself. Whether it's a pentagram, the all-seeing eye, or the phrase "do what thou wilt," it seems as though Jay-Z has some people in a satanic panic. In our number 6 spot today, we have Robert Johnson. Well known for being one of the most incredible guitar players of all time, Robert was one of those people that some members of the public public simply just couldn't see how he was so talented, so of course that led to some extremely haunting rumors swirling about him. Some people claimed that he was only able to gain his talent through supernatural means, which many claimed was by way of the devil. Story goes that Robert headed to the crossroads where the devil took his guitar, tuned it, and showed him how to master the blues. Unfortunately, however, with this eerie tale comes a very tragic end. Some say that in exchange for his abilities, Robert had to offer the later half of his life. He exchanged much of his life in order to make this deal. Sadly, Robert would pass away at the exceptionally young age of 27. Many claim this was actually due to a poisoning made by a jealous man. Whatever the real story behind his life, talents, and tragic death, the legacy of Robert certainly lives on. He was an incredibly prolific musician who left behind quite the record collection. In our number 5 spot today, we have Niccolo Paganini. Niccolo was a professional violinist who was born in 1782. His parents began to send him to lessons when he was just 5 years old, and by age 15 he was already touring the world because he was so talented. What's interesting about Niccolo and his story, other than his obvious musical genius however, is the rumors surrounding his talent and subsequent recognition. According to some, people believe that his own mother summoned the devil in order for her son to be the extreme talent that he was. There are many modern diagnoses that could potentially explain some of what made Niccolo so talented, and I mean, we all know quite well that sometimes people are just born with extreme talent, but of course, in the early 1800s, people and their imagination certainly ran wild. The final reason why people believe Niccolo may have made a deal with the devil is because shortly before his death, Niccolo was quite sick. The doctors had a feeling he was nearing death, so they sent in a priest to pray over him. When Niccolo first saw the priest, it is said that he freaked out and sent the priest away. Many people believe that him pushing the priest away was only a confirmation of the fact that he was working with the devil. In our number 4 spot today, we have Giuseppe Tartini. Okay, so this story is one that is kind of similar to Niccolo's, but even more strange. Giuseppe was an Italian violinist and composer who lived during the 1700s. He went on to compose a song called The Devil's Trill Sonata, and not only this, but he also claimed to wake up one night to find Satan sitting on the edge of his bed playing the violin. It seems as though the devil really likes violins, apparently. What's extremely curious is after this alleged encounter, it is said that Giuseppe's violin skills hit heights never seen before. He was able to suddenly play extremely complicated trills that are impossible for most musicians, and apparently even today the sonata is too difficult for many musicians to play, which is why people believe that perhaps this story really was true. In our number 3 spot today, we have Jack Parsons. Jack was a man who was born just a few weeks prior to the Wright brothers flying the first airplane, and being born at a time like this had him growing up dreaming of and reading sci-fi novels about rocket ships taking people to space. It is said that this love of rocket ships and these dreams of going to space are what led to him summoning the devil in order to make a deal. Jack wanted to sell his soul in exchange for a rocket ship. This deal didn't end up working, but Jack continued to study science as he grew older. Later in life, he stumbled upon the teachings of Aleister Crowley and tried his hand at summoning things again. This time he tried to summon a goddess by the name of Babylon that was said to possibly help men get to the moon one day. Technically, in some ways, it worked, because Jack Parsons ended up helping create the jet fuel that is said to still be used today. Maybe it was his original deal with the devil, maybe it was the goddess, or maybe it was just good old passion and drive that did it. Guess that all depends on what you believe. In our number 2 spot today, we have Christoph Heisman. Back in 1677, Christoph was an artist who was working on a castle in Austria. He was so talented at his job that he had been commissioned by the nobles to do this work. There were rumblings about how he may have sold his soul to the devil, but no one was sure of it until it was said that Christoph confessed. He said he had 9 years prior and that he regretted it very much now and actually wanted an exorcism. They demanded to know if he was a practicing witch, but in the end it was decided that he was not, and that instead the devil just had a very strong hold on him. The local priest began giving Christoph exorcisms, and during these sessions, Christoph explained that he had these intense visions where he was coming face to face with the devil, who was in the form of a dragon. The dragon was holding the contract that held Christoph's soul, and this is when he was able to rip it out of the dragon's talons. When he woke up, it seemed as though he was cured. After this, he began painting pictures of the devil, and he even painted a story with multiple panels that told the story of how he sold his soul and how they helped him to get it back. In our number 1 spot today, we have Antoine Rose. This woman from the 15th century is often credited with our modern day image of a witch riding a broomstick. She became known as the Witch of Savoy, and she is said to have confessed to regularly meeting with the devil. I mean, let's be honest, history doesn't exactly have a good record with those accused of witchcraft, so it isn't quite clear if this deal with the devil was real, or if perhaps Antoine could just add 1 + 1, and then suddenly she was accused of being a witch and had to find a way to try and defend herself. Legend goes that she was in a position where she was in dire need of money, and when she asked her neighbors for help, they led her to a group of people who convinced her to ask the devil for help. When the devil appeared, he agreed to help, of course, in exchange for her rejection of God and her promise to worship him. Story has it that she said the devil had a low, raspy voice when he appeared to her in human form, and she also apparently said that she was quite afraid of him. Can we really blame her?
Starting us off at number 10 is Connie Converse. Born Elizabeth Converse and raised in the Baptist Church, in the early 1950s, Elizabeth moved to New York, started calling herself Connie, and began writing songs and performing them for her friends, accompanying herself on the guitar. Didn't take long before Connie began assimilating into her new lifestyle, smoking and drinking for the first time in her life. Now, to be clear, she had no recorded issues, but her parents, still deeply religious, saw this as an act of defiance and essentially rejected her new life entirely and refused to support Connie's music career. Sadly, her parents were not alone in this rejection. Besides one brief TV appearance on the morning show, Connie's singer-songwriter approach to music was not widely popular, nor did she ever really receive much positive recognition. It seems her lyrical, melancholy ballads got lost in the brass, and by 1961, convinced she was a failure with no real talent, Connie quit music altogether. Then in 1974, just after her 50th birthday, Connie wrote letters to her friends and family, essentially stating that she wished to make a new life for herself, and instead of going to the lake for a family gathering where she had been expected, Connie drove away and was never seen or heard from again. There are some theories that she could have taken her own life, but no body was ever found. Although now, some 49 years later, it is likely she could be gone at this point. However, one can only hope she was alive to see when her music became a cult classic in 2009 after being released by Gene Deitch's record label. Next up at number 9 is Forrest Shab, a Vancouver rapper who came into the spotlight back in 2009 after releasing his hit club track Passenger. Forrest began touring Canada as the opener for Akon after signing a deal with CP Records. Now, Forrest performed under the stage name DY, which stood for Die Young, and aside from being an extremely ominous name for someone who disappeared at the young age of 26, was, as far as anyone else could see, doing really well for himself. So I guess that's what kind of makes him especially mysterious. Unlike some of the others on this list, his life and career were actually on a really good trajectory. He was even preparing to drop his second single at the time of his disappearance. But after announcing his upcoming full-length album in 2010, Forrest apparently shot the music video for his second single, and allegedly at that time his contract with CP Records ended. Then in August of 2010, Forrest flew from Toronto to Mexico. A few weeks later, he wished his friend a happy birthday over social media, but sadly that was the last anyone heard from him. By November 18th, he was reported missing in Mexico, and Canadian police began investigating his whereabouts. In December, his family released grave worry about his disappearance, and although some have speculated his disappearance is related to organized crime affiliations or potentially even that he took his own life due to the loss of his contract, it all remains a complete speculation. 12 years have passed and he still remains a missing person with no viable leads about where he could be. Next up at number 8, Oscar Zeta Acosta, a writer, attorney, and activist for the Chicano movement of the United States in the 40s and 50s. Acosta was well known as being a big-time consumer of pills, booze, and hallucinogens in extreme quantities. Not only that, he was a close friend with writer Hunter S. Thompson, who wrote about and immortalized Acosta as the drug-hazed Dr. Gonzo in his novel Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. But sadly, although the book brought Thompson great fame, it also brought a great deal of tension to their relationship that never fully mended while Acosta was in the limelight. Acosta was a well-known public figure with a reputation for disruption, so it perplexed everyone when in May of 1974 he visited his family home in Mexico and simply vanished out of thin air. Thompson spent years searching for his friend with no success, and along with Acosta's son, feared that perhaps his friend had been killed by a drug hit or assassination. However, as no information has ever surfaced, his whereabouts remain a giant mystery to this day. Next up at number 7 is Dan Cooper. Okay, so this man was less of a celebrity before his disappearance, but he became one due to it happening. Back in 1971, a man who went by the alias Dan Cooper hijacked a commercial plane, and no one has ever been able to find him since. According to those involved, shortly after takeoff he handed a note to a flight attendant claiming to have a bomb in his briefcase. He demanded 4 parachutes and $200,000 in $20 bills, which is about the equivalent of like $1.2 million nowadays. Otherwise, he was going to kill everyone on the plane. After the flight landed in Seattle, Cooper released the 36 passengers once authorities provided him with the money and parachutes. But he kept both pilots, one flight engineer, and flight attendants as hostages on the plane. From there, he forced them to fly to Mexico City, but somewhere over Nevada, Cooper jumped off the plane with the stolen cash. The FBI launched a massive search that is still considered one of the longest and most exhaustive investigations in FBI history. But he has yet to be found, and although he isn't on the top 10 wanted list anymore, he is still considered a missing and wanted person. Coming in at number 6, Rico Harris. In 2000, Rico Harris was a player for the Harlem Globetrotters, but despite his clear talent and incredible potential, Rico suffered from alcoholism and slowly but surely began to lose all his athletic opportunities. After losing his position as a professional player, Rico spent the next few years battling his addiction until finally a 2007 overdose led him to a rehabilitation center. After completing the program, Rico wound up working as a security guard in LA, met a woman, and was beginning to really find his stride. The couple were long distance at first, but by 2014, 2 years after they met, things were going really well, so Harris decided to make the move to Washington from California and set up a job interview in his new city. Before the big move, he went to say goodbye to his family in Alabama to get some closure, specifically from his mother, according to his girlfriend at the time. But after leaving his mother's house in Alabama, records show that he drove north, stopping in Lottie, about 40 miles south of Sacramento, to get gas before calling his girlfriend and leaving a message saying that he was going up the mountains to rest since he had not slept much since leaving Seattle. Then, mysteriously, at 11:15 p.m., he turned off his phone, and not a single soul has heard from him or seen him since that day. His car was found abandoned outside Sacramento, and an investigation into his disappearance uncovered a backpack and a phone on the roadside. At the same time, there had been a few reports of a tall man walking along Route 16, and human footprints were found in the sand. But never any sign of Harris himself. Coming in at number 5 is Joe Pitchler. During the late 90s and early 2000s, Joe was a teen actor who received some success appearing in small and supporting roles in several movies and TV shows over the years, like Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman, Varsity Blues, and was Brennan Newton in the Beethoven franchise. After his small bit of LA success, his family insisted he move back to Washington so that he could graduate high school there. Joe agreed and graduated high school in Washington in 2005, and according to friends and family, he planned to return to LA in 2006 after his braces were removed to continue pursuing his acting career. But strangely, on January 5th, 2006, after speaking with a friend at about 4 a.m., he was never seen or heard from again. On January 9th, his car was found abandoned and his apartment was left untouched, unlocked, and with all the lights on. And apart from one note that vaguely spoke to a depressed state, there was nothing pointing towards Joe taking his own life. In fact, the friend he'd spoken with on January 5th mentioned he seemed in really good spirits. Tragically, the case has never been solved, and no remains have ever been found, and so 17 years later, Joe remains a missing person, and his whereabouts remain just as big a mystery today as they were then. Coming in at number 4 is Patrick McDermott. Although Patrick worked as a fairly successful cinematographer on a handful of short films in the 2000s, his main claim to fame came from his personal life. Famously, Patrick was the on-again, off-again partner of pop star Olivia Newton-John for 9 years between 1996 to 2005. And at the time of his disappearance in 2005, Patrick was on board a Mexico-bound fishing boat, which was apparently somewhat of a frequent activity for him. But this time, he never returned. He boarded all alone, and despite some of his personal belongings, including his car keys, passport, and wallet, which were all found on the boat, Patrick was never seen again. What's especially strange is that according to the Coast Guard, there was no sign of accident, criminal activity, or an attempt to take his own life while on board. The most accepted theory of his whereabouts, after a PI was hired to look into the case for Dateline, is that Patrick faked his own death to avoid substantial debts and allow his son to cash in on his life insurance policy. There are even some conspiracies that he remains hiding out in Mexico to this day with a new girlfriend, but officially there is no concrete evidence that this is true. In fact, one of the photos that was used in an Australian tabloid claiming to be Patrick turned out to be a random guy from Manitoba, Canada with his wife, leaving us no closer to the truth behind this strange disappearance. Next up at number 3 is Hale Boggs. In 1972, Hale Boggs was one of the most famous politicians in America. A Democrat from New Orleans, Boggs became well known by the public for not only being the House Majority Leader during the Nixon years, but also, or even more so, for his frequent, colorful outbursts while on the job. He famously verbally attacked FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover, as well as the FBI as a whole in Congress, became a member who President Nixon refused to take counsel from, and became notorious after outwardly doubting the lone gunman theory of the JFK shooting. Now, Hale was unfortunately someone who suffered from addiction, and it became kind of the belief that most of what he was saying had more to do with his issue with drugs and alcohol than anything else. So imagine the nation's shock when on October 16th of 1972, Boggs, who had been in Alaska helping a fellow congressman's re-election bid, disappeared and was never seen or heard from again. All that was known was that the pair got into an aircraft heading towards the small town of Juneau, Alaska. But despite there being a law that the aircraft needed to be equipped with an emergency locator transmitter, this aircraft was mysteriously not equipped with one. Naturally, the US government instigated a massive search, launching 90 planes to search the area, but no trace of the missing aircraft or its occupants were ever recovered. There are some conspiracies surrounding his death, particularly due to his issues with the FBI and work investigating the JFK case, and some believe he was assassinated. But the truth is that no one really knows what happened to him or where he could have gone. Coming in our number 2 spot is Sean Flynn. Growing up, both Sean's dad and mom were successful actors, and so most of his life Sean assumed he would follow in their footsteps. So after attending Duke University in 1960, Sean embarked on his career and tried to recreate their success. However, after making 10 movies, 8 of which completely bombed, Sean decided that acting was not what he wanted out of life, and in the mid-1960s retired from being in front of the camera and decided to get behind one instead. Sean found his calling as a photojournalist and ended up flying out to Vietnam during the war, working as a freelancer first for a French magazine, Paris Match, followed by Time Life, and finally working for United Press International. During his time as a photojournalist, Sean made quite the name for himself, capturing some harrowing moments of the country's time at war. But unfortunately, it would also lead to his disappearance. In April of 1970, Sean, along along with some other journalists, made his way over to Phnom Penh to attend a government-sponsored conference. However, unlike the others, Sean and one other member decided to ride their motorcycles instead of taking the limousine provided. All that is known is that Sean stopped at a location where the Viet Cong was known to be using, and he was never seen again. While there are many theories that he was taken out by the Khmer Rouge, his remains have never been found, and despite extensive searches to find him, no one has been able to uncover what really happened to Sean while visiting the dangerous checkpoint. And last up in our number 1 spot, Zelim Bakev. Starting in 2013, Zelim began quickly rising to fame after releasing several singles. While climbing the ladder, the Russian pop star applied to be a part of the 10th season of the Russian version of the popular reality show Star Academy. Zelim was accepted and slated to begin in 2017, but tragically he never made it. On August 6, 2017, Zelim was traveling to a nearby town to attend his sister's wedding before making his way back to Moscow to begin shooting. But allegedly, on August 8th, he was arrested by Chechen authorities exactly the same day his phone became inexplicably deactivated. By August 18th, no one had heard from him, and his mother, extremely worried about his whereabouts, filed a complaint with her local police about her son's disappearance. Now, the scary part about all of this is that there's a lot of speculation that he was kidnapped and arrested for being gay. Something that is plausible considering the anti-LGBTQ campaign that was going on at the time of his disappearance. And no matter how hard his mom tried, the government refused to open a criminal investigation into his disappearance, but was simply told he would reappear soon. Then in September of 2017, an Eerie YouTube video was posted by someone claiming to be Zelim, saying that he lives in Germany now, but his family doesn't believe it's him. While no one knows exactly what happened to the poor young man, there are a lot of theories that he was either killed or that he remains trapped somewhere by the government. Starting us off at number 10 is Scott Smith. Back in the 80s, one of the biggest bands was Canadian rock group Loverboy. I mean, Working for the Weekend is still played on radio stations today. So when one of the founding members, Scott Smith, seemingly vanished from reality, there were lots of questions. Back in November of 2000, after playing with his band in Vancouver at a benefit, Smith, along with 2 other friends and his girlfriend, set sail for Mexico on a 37-foot sailboat. As they were sailing down the coast, nearing San Francisco, the weather started to get rough and the waves started to get dangerous. Then one large wave, roughly 20 feet in size, knocked over Smith and sent him shooting off the deck of the vessel into the water. His friends on the boat were not hit, but were in shock about what they had just seen. They searched for the man overboard pole, but it had been taken by the waves along with their friend. Within 20 minutes, the Coast Guard helicopters arrived and dispatched 2 search boats that scoured for hundreds of miles to no avail. Still, his family were bound and determined to find him, so they even paid for a private search. Unfortunately, that too was fruitless. To this day, Smith's remains have never been uncovered, and no one knows if he truly did lose his life to the sea. Coming in at number 9, Daniel Lynn Lagerlof. While for North Americans he might not be the most well known on the list, once upon a time he was one of the most acclaimed directors and writers in Sweden. But his rise to stardom all came to a crashing halt in 2011 when Daniel was out scouting locations for a new thriller project and disappeared forever. Last anyone knew, Daniel had gone to the beautiful nature reserve of Chirpanan, a remote island, all by himself. Now, why he went all by himself, no one knows, but according to his friends, he was simply going off to explore the island and planned to return. Tragically, he never did. To this day, his whereabouts are still a mystery, as no remains have ever been found, and no one knows what actually happened to him. There is one theory that he slipped and fell into the water, but again, no body has been found. Tragically, he has a wife and family, all of whom are hoping that he will still be found, but to this day, no investigations have proved successful. Next up at number 8 is Harold Holt. Nearly 2 years into his term as Australia's 17th Prime Minister, Harold Holt vanished into thin air. Back in December of 1967, Holt, who had always been an avid lover of the ocean, decided to set out for a little trip across with 4 other companions. However, on the way back to Portsea, Holt insisted that the group stop by a small remote beach for a quick swim after lunch. Holt, who was a strong swimmer, said that he knew the waters like the back of his hand and that he had done it many times before. But still, the weather was rough that day, and so only one of his friends agreed to take the dip with him. His friend stayed close to shore, but Holt took a different approach and decided to venture out further, but seemingly got caught up in a wave and in the blink of an eye was gone. To this day, his body has never been found, although a 2005 investigation concluded that he could have drowned. This investigation, however, didn't stop many from theorizing that the leader had faked his own death or that he was some sort of secret CIA agent. While it does sound a little ridiculous at first, he's never been found, so I mean, the truth is still up for debate. Coming in at number 7 is Jim Sullivan. He might not have been the biggest name in his time, but Jim Sullivan definitely had a cult following back in the 60s and 70s, which made his disappearance all the more mysterious. In March of 1975, Sullivan was heading out to Nashville for what he hoped was gonna be his big break into the industry. But for whatever reason, Sullivan never made it to Tennessee. Instead, his car was found abandoned in the desert in New Mexico, and his wallet, clothes, and guitar were all found left in a nearby motel. And as for Sullivan, he was gone without a trace. Now, I don't know many musicians that would go anywhere for long periods of time without their guitar, a sentiment that every single one of Sullivan's friends and bandmates echoed. All of them explained that had he planned to vanish, that would have been the one thing he would take with him. But here is where it gets a little extra strange. Sullivan's most well-known album was called UFO, and on the record were songs seemingly telling the story about driving into the desert and being abducted by aliens. And while of course there is no evidence to prove that that really happened, his body has never been found, and there's no evidence to prove it didn't either. I mean, honestly, who knows? Next up at number 6 is Bison Dele. Once a firecracker player for the NBA, at the age of 30, Bison, who had changed his name from Brian Williams, unexpectedly retired from the game and ran away to live a carefree, adventure-filled lifestyle in Lebanon and across the Mediterranean. From there, he moved on to Australia, where he began learning how to sail, and he bought a boat and named it Hakuna Matata. Then in July of 2002, he decided that he was going to set sail from Tahiti to Hawaii, and he invited his girlfriend as well as his older brother Miles Dabbard along on the trip with him. However, Bison never made it to Hawaii, and neither did his girlfriend or the captain of the boat. The only person who was ever seen again was his brother Miles, who returned to Tahiti alone on the boat a few weeks later on July 20th. Then, 2 months after their mysterious disappearance at sea, Miles was arrested in Phoenix trying to buy gold with one of his brother's checks, and was found using his brother's passport. Even more suspicious is that just 2 days prior, authorities had found the Hakuna Matata with its license plate removed, covered in what seemed to be patched up bullet holes, and registered under a different name. Many believed Miles was very jealous of his brother's success and money, and so him as well as the other 2 on the boat and threw their bodies into the ocean. But no bodies have ever been recovered, so it's never been able to be proven. Plus, the only person who could have given a first-hand account of what went down, Miles himself, overdosed on insulin and died in September of 2002, leaving the entire ordeal as one big mess. Coming in at number 5, Richie Edwards. A big name in the late 80s and 90s, Richie Edwards was a moody and talented musician with a passion for angsty lyrics and a habit of extremely disturbing publicity stunts. For example, once a journalist alluded to the fact that he and his band were posers and not sincere punk rockers, and so Edward grabbed a razor and carved "For Real" into his arm. During his rise to fame, Edwards was very candid about his his struggles with mental health and self-harm and routinely romanticized the perfect disappearance. But still, no one actually ever thought he would try to plot his own. Although no one knows the truth behind his 1995 disappearance, there are definitely some strange facts surrounding it. Firstly, he had been due to fly from Wales to the US for a promotional tour for his new album, The Holy Bible. But 2 weeks prior to his disappearance, it was discovered he withdrew £200 from his account every day. Then, the night before he vanished, he left a gift addressed to his on-again, off-again girlfriend with a note saying, "I love you." Lastly, the morning of his flight, he checked out of his hotel at 7 a.m., leaving behind his suitcase, and his car was later found near the Severn Bridge that connects England and Wales. He was never seen again. At first, it was suspected he could have taken his own life since they found his car by a bridge, but no body was ever found and no trace of Edwards was ever recovered. Next up at number 4 is Michael Rockefeller. Son of the famous and incredibly wealthy New York governor, in 1961, Michael decided to venture out to the remote Hotspots village of the Asmat people in South Papua, Indonesia. The purpose of his trip was to collect primitive art around New Guinea, hoping to curate enough to bring back a collection to his family's museum in New York. However, in November of 1961, while sailing about 3 miles from the shore in his double pontoon boat along with his residential anthropologist he'd brought along on the journey, it suddenly capsized, leaving Michael and his friend with no other choice but to attempt to swim to shore. During his likely unwelcome visit to the remote area, Michael believed he had made friends with several of the local tribes, and it's said that Michael called out to them for help, but no one really knows what exactly happened to him, as he was never seen again. Some say he never made it to shore and drowned trying to get to land, while one author, Carl Hoffman, revisited the exact location where Michael traveled all those years ago, and according to the locals he spoke with, they said, quote, "On the shore, he saw familiar faces, those of the Hotspots warriors. Instead of the rescue Rockefeller hoped for, he was stabbed in the ribs by one of the men, fatally in the precise actions of ritualistic headhunting and consumed by the warriors." However, as there is no proof of his death and no remains have ever been found, the truth is still up for debate. Coming in at number 3 is Lord Lucan. Unlike the others on this list, Lord Lucan, also known as John Bingham, was not really a victim of his circumstances, but rather a kind of evil guy that seemed to manage disappearing from the public eye forever. It all started back in 1974 when he bludgeoned his wife Veronica to death in her London home after she divorced him and won custody of the kids. Or at least that is who he thought he. After the deed had been done, Lucan was shocked to discover it was their nanny who lay dead on his floor. His wife, who was home at the time, called down for the nanny, and after not hearing a reply, went to the kitchen only to be attacked by a man she quickly figured out was her husband. She fought him off, managing to get him to stop after allegedly saying she would help him escape. That night, Lord Lucan called his mother asking her to pick up the children as there had been a terrible catastrophe and someone had attacked Veronica. Where he made this call from is unknown, but from there he drove to a friend's house, and that was the last time there was a confirmed sighting. There's a few different theories around what happened to Lucan, one being that he took his own life in New Haven Harbor, while others believe he went into hiding somewhere in Africa. The strangest theory, however, is that his friends convinced him to take his own life and then fed his remains to tigers at a private zoo in Kent. However, in reality, no one knows what happened to the man, and his body has never been found. Next up at number 2, Jody Husentreat. Somewhat of a local celebrity in Iowa, Jody became well known thanks to her time as a news anchor. However, sadly in 1995, Jody disappeared and has never been found. At about 4 a.m. on June 27, 1995, Jody's producer realized she was not in for her morning broadcast. This was not like Jody, and so her producer called her to check up on her. When she got the call, Jody profusely apologized, saying she had slept through her alarm and was on her way over. But 2 hours went by and Jody had still not turned up. So her producer filled in for her in the morning show and then promptly contacted authorities at 7 a.m. When officers arrived at her apartment, they found her car as well as evidence that suggested a struggle near the car. Even worse was that they discovered an unidentified handprint on the car, but tragically, no more evidence of this case ever surfaced. Believed to have been abducted, no one knows where Jody could be or if she's alive, but her case remains an active investigation. up in our number 1 spot is Jean Spangler. Back in the 1940s, while on the rise of Hollywood stardom, young actress Jean Spangler suddenly disappeared not only from the spotlight, but seemingly from existence altogether. On October 7th, 1949, Jean left her home in LA around 5 p.m., leaving her daughter with her sister-in-law and telling her she was heading to her ex-husband's house to discuss a late child support payment before she headed to work to film a night shoot. 2 hours later, she called the house saying that the shoot was going to take the full 8 hours and not to expect her home that evening. The next morning, Sophia, her sister-in-law, woke up and upon discovering that Jean was still not home from work, grew worried and filed a missing persons report. Once the investigation began, it was discovered that despite telling her family she was working the whole night, she was never at the studio filming the night of her disappearance. Even more peculiar is that a woman at a local farmer's market claimed to have spotted Jean browsing around 6 p.m. looking like she was waiting for someone. 2 days later, police found her purse with a strange note inside that read, "Kirk, can't wait any longer. Going to see Dr. Scott. It will work best this way while mother is away." Neither the mysterious Kirk or Dr. Scott were able to be found, and no one in Jean's family knew who she was speaking of. However, there was speculation that Kirk could have been Hollywood star Kirk Douglas. Still, despite a nationwide search, no further evidence on the case has ever been brought forward, but it remains open and she remains a missing person to this day.
Number 10. Jason Mewes. Jason Mewes is an American actor, comedian, film producer, and podcaster. He's best known for playing Jay, the vocal half of the duo Jay and Silent Bob. He's also known for his roles in Clerks, Dogma, and Chasing Amy. Unfortunately, Jason has been known for struggling with addiction. In 2001, he failed to appear at a mandatory court hearing stemming from his arrest on charges. A warrant was issued and Jason was found to be essentially off the grid. In April 2003, he finally resurfaced, appearing in a Freehold, New Jersey courtroom to answer to charges. A judge sentenced him to mandatory rehab for several months, and he was also given probation through 2005. Number 9. Jay Quan. Jarrell C. Jones, better known by his stage name Jay Quan, is an American rapper best known for his 2004 single Tipsy, which peaked at number 2 in 2004. He went missing once in February 2010, sending his record label into a frenzy. Jay Quan eventually disappeared for a whole month before Gracie Productions issued a statement asking for any information about his whereabouts. In this bizarre case, even a social media handle at Where is Jay Quan surfaced on Twitter with followers leaving tips and info. People even went door to door trying to find any evidence for tracking back to the rapper. After being off the grid for several weeks, Jay Quan finally got in touch with Gracie Productions, explaining that he was taking some time to himself, as he sometimes does, not realizing that people would start to worry after a while. I mean, everyone needs some alone time sometimes, although it's very strange that he didn't tell anyone. But interestingly enough, Jay Quan's 4th studio album was released less than 3 weeks later. Was it just a publicity stunt? Who knows? Number 8. Chelsea O'Donnell. Chelsea O'Donnell is the daughter of comedian Rosie O'Donnell, and she went missing for nearly a week in the summer of 2015. Rosie first reported Chelsea missing from the Rockland County, New York area on Sunday, August 16th. By Tuesday, there was still no sign of Chelsea, and Rosie turned to social media for help. She posted messages on Twitter and Instagram asking the public for any information they could provide. By Wednesday, police had located Chelsea. She had been hiding out with a 25-year-old convicted criminal who sold illegal substances named Steve Shearer. Chelsea met Steve on Tinder and was apparently with him of her own accord. It would have been nice if she let her family know, but I'm glad she was found safe and nothing bad happened to her. Number 7. Ozzy Osbourne. Ozzy Osbourne is an English singer, songwriter, and television personality. He rose to prominence during the 1970s as the lead vocalist of the heavy metal band Black Sabbath, during which period he adopted the nickname Prince of Darkness. Now, Ozzy has been reported missing more than once. During his first tour with Black Sabbath, his bandmates were worried when they realized he had never checked into his room in their Atlanta hotel. They couldn't find him anywhere, so they actually had to cancel that night's show. The police and local radio stations were informed and put out a search party. Ozzy then suddenly appeared the next day as if nothing had happened. It turned out he had gotten drunk and passed out in the wrong room at the hotel, where he slept through the whole ordeal. Ozzy ended up getting sober, but he went missing again in 2016 when Sharon Osbourne, his wife of more than 40 years, discovered that he had been cheating on her with his hairstylist and kicked him out of the house. Ozzy's adult children grew concerned when they couldn't get in contact with him, believing he might have fallen off the wagon. Within 24 hours, he had been located and claimed to not have touched any alcohol or illegal substances. Number 6. Theo London. Theo London is an American rapper and singer. He is a frequent collaborator of Kanye West, as he was a producer on Donda 2 and was featured on Kanye's 2015 single All Day, which was nominated for several awards, including 2 Grammys. He has also worked in the fashion industry, conducting fashion campaigns for designers like Karl Lagerfeld, Virgil Abloh, and Gucci. And he has also designed shoes for companies including Cole Haan and modeling for Tommy Hilfiger. Theo was reported missing in California by his family on December 28, 2022. According to a statement from his record label, Theo's friends and family had not heard from him since July and were trying to piece together information about his whereabouts. A public message from his father read, "Theo, your dad loves you, son. We miss you, and all your friends and relatives are searching for you. Wherever you are, send us some signal. No matter what, we will come get you, son." On January 5th, Theo's cousin provided an update that he had been located. He said, "We have found Theo, he is safe and well. At this time, the family would love prayers and privacy." Number 5. Casey Kazim. Casey Kazim was an American disc jockey, actor, and radio personality who created and hosted several radio countdown programs, notably American Top 40. He was also the first actor to voice Shaggy Rogers in the Scooby-Doo franchise. Now, a court ruling on May 12, 2014 granted his daughter, Carrie Kazim, temporary conservatorship for her 82-year-old father. Casey, who suffered from advanced Parkinson's disease and could no longer talk, was in the care of his wife, Carrie's stepmother, Jean Kazim, and had not been seen by any of his children by some time. During the trial, Jean's attorney, Craig Marcus, admitted neither he nor his client knew where Casey was, but were under the assumption that he had been removed from the country. Thankfully, Casey was found in Washington State 3 days later after this story broke. He was with his wife visiting another couple at their home. When asked, they said they were on vacation. Unfortunately, a month later though, he passed away due to his dementia in Washington. Number 4. Nick Stahl. Nick Stahl is an American actor who started out as a child actor. He gained recognition for his performance in the 1993 film The Man Without a Face. He later transitioned into his adult career with roles in the films The Thin Red Line, In the Bathroom, Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines. And he also played the character of Jason Riley on Fear the Walking Dead. Now, Nick was reported missing by his estranged wife, Rose Stahl, in May of 2012. She became alerted after she couldn't reach Nick for nearly a week and expressed worry that he might have taken too many illegal substances and died. Thankfully, within a few days after the story hit the media, Nick emerged from a downtown Los Angeles house saying he was fine and that he'd gotten into a 30-day inpatient rehab program. This wasn't the end of the drama, however. In June 2012, he went missing yet again. He apparently decided rehab wasn't for him, so he checked out of the facility and vanished. He wasn't missing for long though the second time around, as he surfaced days later after he bolted from the rehab facility, and his wife Rose reported that he was attending Alcoholics Anonymous meetings and in a good place. Number 3. Margot Kidder. Margot Kidder was a Canadian-American actress whose career spanned 5 decades. Her accolades included 3 Canadian Screen Awards and 1 Daytime Emmy Award. She's known for her roles in Black Christmas, The Amity Horror, and is most widely known for her performance as Lois Lane in the Superman film series, appearing in the first 4 films. Now, Margot was missing for 4 days in April of 1996 before she was discovered in a stranger's backyard in Glendale, California. She was found dirty and totally disoriented, suffering from what she described as the most public freakout in history. She was on the run and slept on the street for multiple days, she was delusional, and her 2 front teeth were missing. Margot later admitted that she suffered from bipolar disorder but had refused to take any prescribed medication for the condition. During her breakdown, she said she became increasingly paranoid. At one point, she believed that her first husband and the CIA were trying to end her life. When the police picked her up, she finally gave in to treatment for her manic depression. Number 2.
Fan Bingbing. Fan Bingbing is a Chinese actress. From 2013 to 2017, she was included as the highest paid celebrity in the Forbes China Celebrity 100 list after ranking in the top 10 every year since 2006, and she appeared on Time's magazine list of the 100 most influential people in 2017. Her early work was in East Asian cinema and television, notably appearing in the drama series My Fair Princess. Her breakthrough came with the film Cell Phone, which was China's highest grossing film of the year. She went on to star in several Chinese films, which included Lost in Beijing, But a Mountain, and Double Exposure. In 2018, she disappeared without a trace. Questions, concerns, and rumors about her whereabouts grew when she was not seen after a last public appearance on July 1st, 2018, and a lack of social media activity after the 23rd of July. She was charged with tax evasion and then fell off the face of the earth. She was presumed missing, and rumors suggested that Fan had been arrested, but they were not confirmed. In August, Fan's manager, Jersey Chong, stated via social media that Fan was never arrested. She then popped back up on October 3rd, 2018 with a statement on social media apologizing to the public for tax evasions after the Chinese authorities ordered her and her companies to pay about $127.4 million US in taxes and penalties to avoid criminal prosecution. And coming in at number 1 is Randy Quaid. Randy Quaid is an actor best known for his roles in A Streetcar Named Desire, Independence Day, and most notably for playing Cousin Eddie in the Vacation movies. In 2009, Randy and his wife were arrested for allegedly defrauding an innkeeper in Santa Barbara by using an invalid credit card to pay a $10,000 bill. They were released on bail and eventually paid most of the bill. However, they repeatedly failed to appear in court and warrants were issued for their arrest. They eventually appeared in court the following year, where the case was dismissed against Randy for lack of evidence. Then in September 2010, Randy and his wife were charged with burglary after they spent 5 days occupying the guest house in a vacant home they once owned in Santa Barbara. They claimed that the home was wrongfully transferred to a third party by the use of forged signature. Warrants for their arrest were issued after they failed to appear in court, and in October 2010 they moved to Vancouver, Canada, where they sought asylum in Canada, stating that they feared for their lives in the United States. People thought they fled due to them running from the law, but they claimed they'd fled to avoid the Hollywood star whackers, which they claim is a secret organization that takes celebs out or manufactures scandals to discredit them. While being in Canada, no one knew what was going on with them until they were caught in 2015 after the couple attempted to drive across the border into Vermont and were detained by US Customs due to their legal issues.
Coming up in our number 10 spot, we have Lynn Spears killed someone. Oh lordy, this news was super shocking for me to hear, so brace yourselves. The mom of pop princess Britney Spears apparently killed someone in a car crash. She briefly talked about the horrible incident in her autobiography, but she tries to stay quiet about it for obvious reasons. Apparently she was driving her brother when she ran over young Anthony Winters in 1975 in her hometown of Kentwood, Louisiana. Apparently Lynn was haunted by the accident and was not charged for the crime. The tea of the story is, though, apparently the mother of the boy, Yvonne Winters, has spoken out about this incident and has said that Lynn has never reached out to her to speak about the accident. She's been quoted as saying, "It's been 40-some years ago, but she's never been in touch with me. It was an accident. It was a terrible situation. But it was an accident, and accidents can happen to anyone." If you're enjoying this video so far, smash that like button as it really helps us out. In our number 9 spot, we have Angelina Jolie was in a cult. So, Hollywood cults, we all know about them, or at least we have heard about them. Well, in 1999, actress Angelina Jolie was allegedly caught on tape talking about one of them. A 23-year-old Angelina was secretly recorded in a private convo with some of her friends where she speaks about an initiation process she took part in. She spoke about how the people in the cult are essentially tied up and tortured, and oh yeah, she had to kill a snake as a sacrifice. A sacrifice to whom? We don't know. The devil, perhaps. After the ceremony, Angelina spoke about how she got a tattoo to represent the occasion. Yikes. Honestly, this one doesn't surprise me, as she did once wear her ex-husband's blood around her neck as a necklace, but somehow I can't picture Meryl Streep participating in something like this, so perhaps not all celebs are a part of these cults. In our number 8 spot, we have Paris Hilton and her sticky fingers. Ooh, this is a juicy one. Hilton Harris, Paris Hilton, allegedly used to have some sticky fingers. Her former bodyguard revealed her dark past to Radar Online, stating that that, quote, before she was so well known, Paris used to grab jackets, jewelry, shoes, anything that wasn't nailed to the floor. The heiress allegedly even stole from parties at other celebrities' houses which she attended. Quote, at a party in the Hollywood Hills, she asked me to put a pair of shoes she liked in my jacket and walk out with them. This girl could buy 1,000 pairs of these shoes if she wanted to, so I don't know why she'd steal them. Damn, that seems like a rebellious teen acting out. If this is true, hopefully she has stopped this kind of behavior at this point. In our number 7 spot, we have Bill Murray tried to smuggle an illicit Oh, Bill Murray. In 1970, Bill attempted to smuggle 10 pounds of an illicit the one that's legal in many states now, if you catch my drift, and was actually arrested on his birthday. Apparently he intended to sell it, which, you know, makes sense. 10 pounds is a lot. He was discovered after apparently joking about it to a passenger next to him on a flight. Probably not in a sober headspace, as that just seems really silly. Apparently he only received probation for the offense. So not necessarily a scary secret, but perhaps it's how you look at it. Arguably, it feels a bit scary that his celebrity status could have helped him escape jail when many have been imprisoned throughout the US for the very same thing. Not to mention, many are still being kept in jail even when the US government is trading a Russian war criminal to free someone who has been imprisoned for the same illicit. Clearly they don't think it's that bad of a crime. Huh. Funny. In our number 6 spot, we have Leighton Meester was born in jail. Yep, this one shocked me too. Leighton Meester, who played the infamous Blair Waldorf in Gossip Girl, was actually born in jail. Her mother was serving time for smuggling when she gave birth to Leighton in 1983. Her mom and her aunt were arrested for smuggling 1,200-pound shipments of an illicit drug out of Jamaica. Her aunt Judy was sentenced to prison as well, but she ended up breaking out and becoming the first woman in the US to get on the US Marshals Most Wanted list. Whoa, that's an intense family history. I hope Leighton writes a biography one day. I so want to read about this. In our number 5 spot, we have Thora Birch came from a family of adult movie stars. Actress Thora Birch, known for Hocus Pocus, Now and Then, and many 90s classics, has a bit of a dark family history. Her parents were adult film stars, and so yes, as you can imagine, she definitely had a less than traditional upbringing. Her parents apparently would insist on being at every performance she did throughout her career. So much so that the crew tended to see them as creepy. Her father, Jack, would give cameramen pointers while Thora would be filming, physical scenes for the movies she was in. Ugh. Her father also apparently threatened to kill one of the assistant directors on set. Yikes. Well, no wonder she has seemingly stepped back from the spotlight over the years. She's still a working actress, just doesn't seem to look for any attention on her. In our number 4 spot, we have Alfred Hitchcock was a stalker. So, apparently one of the most popular directors of all time was a bit of a creepy stalker. He was known for becoming fascinated with beautiful women that he would cast in his films. He used his powerful position in Hollywood to insert control over the women. He was apparently obsessed with his star Tippi Hedren, who he said he would make into a star after seeing her in a soft drink commercial. Very odd. His obsession got out of control when apparently he asked crew members to spy on her during filming breaks. Yikes. I'm so glad Hollywood has been making some serious changes over the last decade. In our number 3 spot, we have Vin Diesel loves D&D. Dungeons and Dragons! Okay, fine. This one isn't scary. I mean, unless you think nerds are scary, but then all I have to say to you is, you're weird. Nerds are the best, and I love that big guy Vin D loves Dungeons and Dragons. I've always wanted to play that game. Apparently he has played the game for over 20 years. He also wrote the foreword to 30 Years of Adventure, a celebration of Dungeons and Dragons. Oh, and he also has a podcast dedicated to it. A true fan. Kind of makes him even more awesome in my opinion. In our number 2 spot, we have Frank Sinatra was in cahoots with the Mafia. This is a very interesting one, but apparently iconic Italian-American singer Frank Sinatra may have had some help from the Mafia to secure his place in Hollywood. Allegedly, Frank was believed to have scored the role for the infamous movie From Here to Eternity because of his connections. Many very established actors were up for the role, role, and it was his friend's influence that helped him secure it. He apparently was friendly with a mob boss and Charles Lucky Luciano, so there's also that. Apparently there is ample evidence that he had friends help him out over the years. In our number 1 spot, we have Matthew Broderick killed 2 people. Ferris Bueller himself unfortunately killed 2 people in a car crash. It was 1987. The actor was dating Dirty Dancing star Jennifer Grey at the time, and one day they were driving along a road in Ireland when they collided with a car that had a mother and daughter inside. Matthew had some substantial injuries, but Jennifer had minor injuries, while the mother and daughter unfortunately passed from the incident. Apparently Matthew had been driving in the wrong lane, even though he can't explain why, as he doesn't remember anything from that day.
Starting us off with number 10 are drugs. This is honestly no secret at all. Hollywood is filled with drugs because, contrary to popular belief, money can't buy you happiness, but it can buy you a ton of drugs. If you don't want to take my word for it, take it from Dennis Quaid. The actor said he had dabbled in cocaine before becoming a star, but it was just for casual use. I love how that's so casual, like, oh, just cocaine for the casual use. In 1974, he moved to LA and his usage didn't get out of control until he started being on set for all these big mainstream movies. Quaid revealed that movie budgets disguised cocaine as petty cash to keep the drugs on set a secret. Moreover, it's freely given out on movie sets because it was just the norm back then and everyone was just doing it. He then shared his coke addiction caused his life to fall apart, and it was because of Hollywood. Another prime example is obviously Matthew Perry, who plays Chandler on Friends. If you didn't know that, are you literally living under a rock? Now, he was seriously addicted to cocaine for like 3 full seasons of Friends, which he doesn't even recall filming. I didn't think it was given out that sparingly though, but you know what they say, cocaine is the rich man's drug.
Moving on to number 9, we have the casting couch. So this is probably not the biggest secret anymore, but for quite some time it was. Basically, there's a lot of sleaze bags in Hollywood. Some Hollywood directors or stars invite females over and, well, offer them roles in movies in exchange for certain favors. They call this the casting couch. It's absolutely disgusting. Like, they use their wealth and power to persuade innocent people. But sadly, a lot of people desperate for fame will agree to this. In an interview with GQ magazine, Megan Fox actually revealed the truth behind this. She said that numerous big Hollywood legends would invite her over for what she thought was just going to be like a meeting for a new opportunity. But when she got there, she realized their true intentions. She shut down several men throughout her career.
At number 8, we have Alfred Hitchcock. This one honestly pains me because I love his films, but he's such a misogynistic human being. Like, I'm like, ugh. Since his films emphasize a voyeuristic viewpoint from the male protagonist, most female characters were almost just like stock characters. They were remote, usually blonde, sexy, and in the end they always got humiliated. With films like Psycho, Rebecca, and of course The Birds, the man achieved a lot but was a total dick. He once referred to actors as cattle, which, I mean, you may be directing the movie, but they are literally bringing it to life. With The Birds, there was major controversy concerning Hitchcock and his treatment of the female lead, Tippi Hedren, who plays Melanie. After she was cast, Alfred became literally obsessed with her and would grab her out of nowhere, non-consensually, and touch her sexually. He stalked her throughout shooting and would isolate her from the rest of the cast while whispering explicit things in her ear. Tippi obviously shut down all advances, and he did not take that well. In the last phone booth attack scene, Tippi's face was cut by the glass pane, and she said she was misled about the logistics of the scene. Or did Alfred just do it on purpose as revenge? If that wasn't petty enough, he also signed her to a 7-year contract that restricted her ability to do work. This was actually never confirmed, but it came to light after he died, and even her co-star confirmed it. Apparently, he also taunted Tippi's daughter, Melanie Griffith, by giving her a wax figure of her mum in a coffin as a present when she was only 6 years old.
Making our way down the list of number 7, we have the Hollywood sign. So a lot of dark things go down in Hollywood, as you probably realize by now. One of them was the suicide of Peggy Twistle, a struggling Hollywood actress. She had dreams of making it big in Hollywood, but sadly that didn't happen. She was a successful Broadway actor, but didn't have much success in the film field. Her one role was a 15-second appearance in the movie Hazel's Cousins. The pressures of being successful in Hollywood, along with the Great Depression, kinda got to her. On the night of September 16th, 1932, she climbed to the top of the H on the Hollywood sign and jumped to her death. Now, this tragic incident actually had a huge influence on current pop culture. In the 2009 film Percy Jackson and the Olympians, The Lightning Thief, the H in the Hollywood sign was made the entrance to the underworld. In Lana Del Rey's song Lust for Life, it starts with the lyrics, "Climb up the H of the Hollywood sign." It's assumed that these are both references to Peg's death.
Now, at number 6 is Jane Mansfield. To be honest, I had not heard of Jane until I started researching this video, but wow, she was actually gorgeous. She was an American actress, singer, nightclub entertainer, and one of the first Playboy playmates. She was in movies like The Girl Can't Help It and Too Hot to Handle, and a bunch of more movies that came out way before I was born, and I haven't seen any of them. Now, in 1967, Jane was in Mississippi doing some appearances, and on the 28th of June, the plan was to go to New Orleans for another appearance. So Jane, her driver Ronnie, her attorney Sam, and 3 of her kids got into the car and set off on their way. At around 2:30 a.m. on Highway 90, their car was speeding when it crashed into the back of a tractor trailer. The adults in the front died instantly, including Jane, but her children thankfully walked away with minor injuries. Now, apparently Jane was actually decapitated since the car had its top literally sheared off, and it looked like her hair was tangled in the windshield. But it turns out she just suffered from severe head trauma, as in her skull was crushed. I love how I was like, just severe head trauma, that's a lot. And the blonde hair was from the wig that she was wearing apparently. It was this incident that propelled the NHTSA to start adopting an under-eyed guard on their tractor trailers, which is sometimes called a Mansfield bar. Fun fact, one of her kids that survived was Mariska Hargitay, who you all must know from Law & Order Special Victims Unit. I literally used to watch her so much growing up, I was like, damn, she has a hard name. But then I realized people pronounce my name really badly, and I'm like, okay, at least my name's not Mariska Hargitay.
We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with The Cursed Project. The 1961 film The Misfits was filmed with old Hollywood stars like Marilyn Monroe, Montgomery Clift, and Clark Gable. So you would think it would be a big success, right? Not so much. In fact, this movie is said to be cursed. When filming, they experienced a number of setbacks and bad things would happen to them. Then, Gable died of a heart attack a few days after filming. Marilyn Monroe overdosed on set and then died barely a year later after the film was finished. And the night that the movie was airing on television, Clift died of a heart attack. That's so spooky. Like, all 3 stars died very soon after the production ended. So it's thought that this movie is somehow cursed.
And number 4 is Superman. No, I'm not talking about Henry Cavill, but I honestly really wish I was. No, I'm talking about George Reeves, who not only played Superman on TV in Adventures of Superman, he was also Superman in the film Superman and the Mole Men. And also producer Chris just told me there was also a Christopher Reeves who also played Superman. But what made George notable was the manner in which he died or got murdered. On the 16th of June 1969, the LAPD reported that George had been shot in the head at some point between 1 and 2 in the morning. The people in the house at the time were his fiancée Lenore and 4 other people. They all went out, some to a restaurant, whereas Reeves went to a friend's wrestling match. Around midnight he went to bed while 2 of the friends were downstairs just having a bit of a party. Apparently he came down and angrily told them to be quiet, then calmed down and stayed for a while, had a drink, and then went back to bed. All the guests were downstairs when a while later they heard a single gunshot, and by the time they went upstairs, they found him lying across the bed naked with a pistol between his feet. It looked like he had shot himself, and the friends took an awfully long time to call the police since they were so shocked and so very drunk. One friend claimed his fiancée was actually upstairs with him and came down after the gunshot, telling everyone to tell the police she was downstairs the whole time. Alright, Lenore, you're a bit shady. There was no gunpowder on Reeves' hands, no fingerprints on the gun, the bullet was found in the ceiling, yet there were also multiple bullets in the ground, yet they all only heard one gunshot. On the flip side, George was also sleeping with Fixer and MGM VP Eddie Mannix's wife Toni at the time, but you'll find out about him later. He is a douchebag. Rumor had it that Eddie had mafia ties and found out about the affair and had him killed. So either his fiancée killed him, the mafia killed him, or he actually did commit suicide. I don't know.
Coming in at number 3, we have the mysterious death of Thelma Todd. At just the age of 29, Thelma Todd became a successful Hollywood star. That was until December 16th, 1935, when she was found dead in her car in Jewel Carmen's garage. Jewel Carmen was an actress and wife of Roland West, who Thelma had the occasional fling with. The cause of death was carbon monoxide poisoning. However, her car wasn't running when they found her, and it still had fuel in the tank. As a result, this has become a huge Hollywood secret. No one truly knows what happened to her. Was it accidental, or was it her ex-husband seeking revenge? Maybe it was her business partner or secret lover, maybe even her shady agent. We really don't know. Now, West did say that he locked her out, which made her seek refuge in her car, and so she may have accidentally killed herself from having the car running in a closed garage. But autopsy revealed that she had damage to her throat. One popular theory is that she died at the hands of West, who then staged her death to look like an accident. There's just a lot of secrets surrounding the case. Someone knows what happened, but to this day, we truly don't know.
Now at number 2 is the fixer. Some believe any publicity is good publicity, but I mean there's legitimately bad press out there. Like if you're gonna get caught getting arrested for a DUI or you go to jail for murder, that is bad publicity. You may have heard of this before, but in Hollywood when someone gets to a bit of a sticky situation, they hire a fixer like Michael Sitrick to twist the negative stories into positive ones. I get why fixers are so important since celebrities get into shit every week, but sometimes they protect the wrong people. For example, back in 1937, Patricia Douglas, a 20-year-old actress, went to an after party for the MGM annual sales convention. And just imagine this party as a giant Hollywood frat party where people can legit do whatever they want because of how much money is just floating in the air. Either way, during the night, MGM sales exec David Ross, along with a friend, forced her to get drunk before sexually assaulting her. Patricia obviously wanted to press charges, and she did, but MGM got their fixer, Eddie Mannix, who I also mentioned beforehand, got him involved, and he made sure David's studio was never mentioned during the scandal. That in turn ruined Patricia's reputation, and Eddie somehow also got a portrayal in Hail Caesar, which is some sick kind of karma after ruining Patricia's life and God knows how many more.
And in our number 1 spot, we have The Poltergeist. This 1982 film has been scaring people for years, and not just from its creepy storyline. No, the film itself is cursed. In fact, it has been named the most cursed franchise in Hollywood. Brace yourself. It's about to get creepy. So first off, the skeletons used in the rainy pool scene were real skeletons. Yeah, apparently it was cheaper to get real ones than to make fake ones. So that's probably how the film became cursed. Then while filming a scene where a character gets choked by a robot clown doll, the actor actually got choked by the doll. Steven Spielberg thought that he was just doing a really realistic performance, but then noticed that he started to turn purple. That's not all. Multiple actors from the movies died tragically either during or after filming. Dominique Dunne, who played the older sister in the first movie, got murdered right after its premiere. Then 2 other actors died from cardiac arrest. And Lou Perryman, who was Pugsley in the movie, got brutally murdered by an ex-convict. So yeah, too many freaky coincidences for the film not to be cursed.